Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? It's your boy, The Doc, and we are back for the Week 9 Injury Update Show. Can't believe we're already over halfway through the NFL regular season. We've got a lot of injuries to talk about. You guys know the deal. Each and every week, I, an actual doctor, go through the entire NFL slate, tell you about all the injuries that you need to know about for your fantasy teams. So let's jump into it. All right, guys, just like I've told you before, these are just projections. It's what I think is going to happen based on the information that I have as of recording. Sometimes we get new information on Friday and Saturday. I try to believe that information in the pinned comment of this video down below. We do have two teams on bye, the Steelers and the 49ers this week, so we're not going to talk about them. And we're going to go quickly through Thursday night football here. Texans at the Jets. Texans did have a big injury last week. Stephon Diggs has a confirmed ACL tear. He is done for the year. Dameon Pierce missed this game with a groin injury, and Jimmy Ward also dealing with a groin injury, missed this game as well for the Texans. For the Jets, Allen Lazard still dealing with the chest issue. He missed last night's game. And Devontae Adams left the game briefly for a concussion screen, but was able to return. Haven't really seen many injuries as of this recording. Hopefully you started a few of the Jets wide receivers, Devontae Adams, and also Garrett Wilson having huge weeks in this game that I have been watching for the last hour or two prior to recording this. So hopefully you guys started them this week. All right, heading into the early Sunday slate, we got Cowboys at the Falcons. Cowboys still have some key defenders missing this game, probably their three best defensive players, if we're being honest, but they've been out for a few weeks now, so nothing really new to talk about there. As for the Falcons, they don't really have any injuries to talk about, so we're going straight to the Broncos at the Ravens. Broncos, no major fantasy relevant injuries to speak on, but the Ravens do have quarterback Lamar Jackson missing back-to-back practices to start the week. The team has said he's just getting some rest. They're calling this a knee/back issue. I think he's just banged up. I'm not really reading much into this unless he doesn't practice on Friday. Still think very, very likely that he will be playing in this game. I'm not really concerned at all for Lamar Jackson. Moving on to the Dolphins at the Bills. Tons of players on the injury report for both of these teams, but it's the wide receivers that we're focusing on. Dolphins have 17 players on the report, but wide receiver Tyreek Hill, probably the one that we're the most concerned about. He was initially listed as missing Wednesday's practice just for rest. Not really concerned. Dudes are allowed to rest. Not worried about that. But then on Thursday, the team added a foot issue. Couldn't really find much in terms of what this could be. I don't really think it's anything to be too worried about, but anytime we're talking about a wide receiver and a foot issue, my ears perk up just a little bit. Then we've got the Bills. They've got 19 players on their injury report, but wide receiver Amari Cooper is the one that I'm the most concerned about. He's got a wrist injury, really bad second game after a pretty promising first game for the Bills. He was originally not supposed to practice on Wednesday after hurting his wrist in the game this week, but he did get a limited practice in, so better than they expected. Probably a good sign for his prognosis for the week. He's really a boom or bust player until we see him work his way into this offense a little bit more. I'm not really trusting him in my fantasy lineups unless I absolutely have to. Still think Khalil Shakir is the wide receiver that you want for the Bills. Next one up is Saints at the Panthers. Not really a game I'm very excited to watch, but the Saints are excited to have quarterback Derek Carr come back from his oblique strain. He's missed the last 3 weeks. This is the first time we've seen him practicing since he injured his oblique about a month ago. Again, on pace to return this week in what is really a must-win game for both of these teams if they want even a sliver of a chance to make the playoffs. Don't think either team is going to be able to make it based on their current records, but the Saints have more riding on this game than the Panthers because I think they do kind of want to win. Don't really know if the Panthers are trying to win much anymore, but they do have running back Jonathan Brooks possibly coming back from his ACL tear. He's gotten back-to-back full practices this week. Looks like he should be able to return. Not really excited to throw him into my regular lineups, but it is exciting for dynasty owners that drafted him in rookie drafts, and we'll see how he looks coming back in his first action as an NFL player after injuring his ACL in college last year. Quarterback Andy Dalton has a thumb sprain, but the team has already decided that they want to start Bryce Young going forward. Again, maybe this is just so they can get a better draft pick. I do think Bryce Young probably gives them a better chance to not win any more games the rest of this season. So we'll see if that's what they're choosing to do here. And then wide receiver Xavier Legette coming with a toe injury. It's going to be a game time decision. Not really much to go off of because this was a midweek downgrade in practice. It's probably nothing. He did practice in a limited capacity, but Friday's practice will tell us more. He should be operating as the team's best wide receiver going forward after they traded Deontay Johnson. Moving on to the Raiders at the Bengals. Raiders have quite a few guys on the report, but I do expect the major names to play in this game, so we're not going to spend much time talking about them. But the Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins is dealing with a quad strain that he picked up in practice last Friday. Don't love it when guys get hurt on Fridays. Again, record this usually Thursday night, so I missed this one. Hopefully you picked up the news that he was injured in practice and not expected to play. Zach Taylor said that he's day-to-day, but I'm not really expecting him to play this week. Has not practiced yet this week. This is kind of where we're at with Higgins as a player at this point. He's just not really somebody that I can trust week to week to be healthy. Next game, we got Chargers at the Browns. 31 players on the injury report between these two teams. Chargers wide receiver Quentin Johnson does look like he's on track to return this week, so they're going to have more options in the pass-catching game. Ladd McConkey looked like he was going to be the wide receiver to own going forward after his big game last week, though, so we'll see if that continues now that Quentin Johnson is back in the fold. As for the Browns, tight end David Njoku missed practice on Thursday. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this was scheduled rest for Njoku. He missed 3 games with an ankle injury earlier in the year. Practiced on Wednesday, wasn't even really on the report on Wednesday, and then DNP'd on Thursday. So you don't love to see that, but again, I think this is just scheduled rest for Njoku. As for the rest of the Browns, a couple defensive players that I don't expect to play in this game, but I do think that we'll see Jerome Ford come back in some capacity. We'll see if that affects Nick Chubb moving forward. Moving on, we got Commanders at the Giants. Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels coming off that rib contusion, proved his toughness in college, was going to be able to carry over in the NFL. Remember, he played at LSU with broken ribs, now playing in the NFL with what I believe is not broken ribs, but is a pretty serious rib contusion. Probably put up one of the most electric plays of the season last week with his Hail Mary pass to win the game. Love to see that he is able to play and still produce, even though he's dealing with the rib injury. I'd expect him to keep playing. As for the Giants, they've got 15 players on the report, but Tyrone Tracy coming back out of the game with a concussion last week. I do think that there's a good chance that he won't be able to play in this game. They played on Monday. You hate to see that for a concussion. Rarely do we see players come back in just 1 week, and we almost never see them come back in 6 days. So expect that Devin Singletary, who I really kind of crapped on last week, not going to lie, don't like Devin Singletary, don't think he's very good at football. Just prepare for him to have a solid 45 yards on 18 carries this week. Last game of the early slate, we got Patriots at the Titans in a game that I am definitely not watching a second of. Patriots have 16 players on the report, but none of them missed practice fully on Thursday, so that's good at least, even though they've got a lot of guys injured. None of them are totally missing practice. Quarterback Drake May, though, dealing with a concussion, has been practicing in a limited capacity. He's in concussion protocol. Again, rare for players to come back in just 1 week, but it looks like he's on track to possibly do that. I'm leaving this as a game time decision because concussions can change kind of on a dime based on symptoms, but 2 limited practices to start the week, encouraging sign for Drake May. As for the Titans, Tony Pollard has a foot injury. I'm going to say it's a game time decision. I couldn't find an injury when watching film to indicate this is anything serious. Everything we've heard from reports are that he is expected to play in this game, so why is he missing practices? My guess is he may be on the trade block with the deadline looming coming up next week. So we'll see if Tony Pollard is a big name that gets moved before the trade deadline. They also have a few guys expected to miss this game on the defensive side of the ball, but nobody that I really think is super fantasy relevant. So we're going to head straight into the midday slate. All right, first game up on the midday slate, we got Bears at the Cardinals. Bears have a couple defensive backs that have been missing games. Expect them to continue to miss games. They also have a couple offensive linemen that are expected to miss this game. Braxton Jones, who was their starting left tackle, left the game early with a knee injury, and then his backup came in. He has a calf injury now. I don't expect either one to play, so Bears are hurting on the offensive line side of the ball. We'll see if the Cardinals can capitalize on that. As for the Cardinals, they don't really have any injuries to talk about, so we're going straight to the Jaguars at the Eagles. Jaguars running back Travis Etienne. After a few weeks without Etienne and his hamstring strain, it looks like the Jags are going to have a decision to make on if they will trust him carrying the ball forward. They have been trusting mostly Tank Bigsby to carry that load while he was gone. We'll see if Travis Etienne can get some work, especially with Tank Bigsby dealing with an ankle injury. He's not at 100%. We'll see. He's been kind of up and down. He's had some good games, had some bad games. So we'll see what the split looks like now that Travis Etienne is back in the fold. As for Brian Thomas Jr., he's dealing with a rib cartilage injury. He doesn't have a rib fracture, but cartilage injuries can be painful, and so it's mostly a pain management issue. Can he manage the pain? If he can play through, he's going to be able to play, but we're not really going to know much about this until hopefully Sunday morning, maybe Saturday. So keep an eye out on Brian Thomas Jr. news to see if he is officially in or out for this game. And then wide receiver Christian Kirk has a fractured collarbone. He is done for the year, so they're really hoping that Brian Thomas Jr. is able to play in this game. As for the Eagles, tight end Dallas Goedert still dealing with the hamstring strain. Don't expect him to play this week. Moving on, we got Lions at the Packers. Lions quarterback Jared Goff has an ankle injury. He tweaked his ankle in practice, but was able to practice in full on Thursday. He should be fine. As for the Packers, running back Josh Jacobs dealing with an ankle sprain. He's coming off one of his best games as a Packer, but picked up the ankle injury at some point in that game last week. He's still expected to play this week, and I don't really have a problem starting him based on volume. And then the Packers also dealing with a quarterback issue. Jordan Love has a groin injury that caused him to miss a good chunk of last week's game. We'll see what happens with this. They said it's not as bad as they thought it was based on the MRI, but he's going to be a game time decision. I think there's a good chance that he could even miss this game, even though it did look like he wasn't as hurt as they thought he maybe was when this injury first came out. The last game of the mid-Sunday slate, we got Rams at the Seahawks. Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua has a knee injury again. He's going to be a game time decision, just when it looked like we were going to be able to throw him back into lineups. Really disappointing to see Puka Nacua get hurt in practice on Thursday. It's the same knee that cost him most of the season thus far. And the team has said that it's minor, but it just reminds me of how volatile this situation is with Puka Nacua. When we've got a PCL injury like this, there's some instability there. There's always a chance that he could aggravate it again and again and again. So Puka Nacua, now a game time decision for this week. I think it's more likely that he misses this week, but I don't think this is as bad of an injury as what he had to start the season. So I guess that's better than nothing. It's just really disappointing because he's one of those guys that you want to be able to throw in your lineup. Spend a big draft capital cost on him. You just hate to see him not be able to play in these games because of the same injury over and over and over again. As for the Seahawks, they've got 18 players on the injury report, and DK Metcalf is the one I think most people are concerned about. He's got an MCL sprain. I don't expect him to be back this week. He was supposed to practice on Thursday, ultimately could not practice. Not a good sign for him being able to play on Sunday. Seahawks have lost 4 of their last 5 games. They are desperate to right the ship. I just think they're going to do it without DK Metcalf this week, and I think the Rams could easily steal this game from the Seahawks and really start to take control of this division as a whole. The Rams, sneaky playoff potential right now based on how they're playing. If they can get everybody back healthy, they're just a tough out. They're a tough team to beat. The offense is going to score points, and we'll see if they can pick up a win against the Seahawks this week with them being so banged up right now across the board. All right, and finally, we've got our marquee games of the week, Sunday Night Football. Colts at the Vikings. Colts don't really have anybody I want to talk about right now, but Vikings tight end TJ Hawkinson is expected to finally make his return. Good to see him back practicing in full this week. I think he's ready to go. With how bad tight end is and the fact that you've probably held TJ Hawkinson up to this point, I don't hate throwing him into your lineups. We'll see what happens. We'll see how much he's involved. Working with a new quarterback, we'll see if he can get a solid target share in his first week back. I'm not expecting like groundbreaking things, but the tight end position's so bad. It's just good to have another option on your team. And hopefully if you drafted him, you are going to be able to start him in his first week back, because I think it's just good to root for guys coming back from injury. And then finally, we got Monday Night Football, Buccaneers at the Chiefs. Bucs wide receiver Mike Evans, again, expected to miss multiple weeks with his hamstring injury. He's out for this game. Bucky Irving, though, missed most of the practices last week. Technically a DNP on walkthrough on Thursday, but I'd expect him to be able to play this week. Despite missing some practice time, he still led the team in touches out of the backfield last week. And then the Chiefs have a couple guys on offense that I think are going to be able to play and not play. I think Kareem Hunt is fine. He's limited in practice with a quad injury, but he should be able to play. I've not heard really anything about Isaiah Pacheco yet. We'll see if maybe we get an update next week. There's a possibility that he could return as soon as week 10, but I haven't heard anything about him making enough progress to actually be able to play anytime soon. So just keep that in mind if you're waiting on him to come back. Could be a while before you see Isaiah Pacheco. And then wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster deal with a hamstring strain. I don't expect him to be able to play this week as this hamstring injury has lingered for a few weeks now and he's not practicing yet. All right, guys, that's it for this week's injury show. If you like the show, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. It's free. It helps us out a ton. If you want to become a member of our exclusive Discord, hit the join button down below. Become a member of Headliner Nation. It's the best way to get a hold of us throughout the week. Answer as many questions as we can over there as well. It's a great community. We don't let any jerks in there. So hit the join button, become a member of the best community in all of fantasy football. Want to thank our sponsors, Underdog. Use the code Headliners when you sign up and get up to $1,000 bonus cash with your first deposit when you use that code Headliners. Again, Underdog Fantasy, it's the place to play fantasy sports with the Headliners, and it is just the most fun place to put bets on games. Make sure you're using that code Headliners when you sign up. But that's all I got for you guys this week. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.
Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game.